Alan's gonna knock on the wall in a second, and as soon as he does, I'll let everyone know.
Thank you all. Really appreciate everybody. This is such a wonderful group to work with. I'm just frankly quite astonished at how well we're doing, and I thank all of you. It's really great.
I'm glad to see Deanna didn't fall asleep during the meeting.
Deanna, what were you doing up all night?
Well, once I finally was able to get to sleep, I just couldn't sleep. I think I just was too restless thinking about stuff, and every once in a while that happens. I'm not like that most of the time. My husband will tell you when I fall asleep most of the time, you could drive a freight train through the bedroom and it won't wake me up.
I wish I had that ability.
Alan should be getting us up and alive in a second here, so if everyone should pause for a second, so we're not in conversation in the middle. Let me just double check. Chairman, we're good if you'd like to start.
All right, we are coming out of executive session now. This is the Kentucky State Board of Elections, a regular meeting of August 18th. If I could have a motion to come out of executive session, I would appreciate it.
So moved.
Motion by Member Brangers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are now back in open session. Is there any new business or old business that needs to be transacted? Mr. Director.
Sorry, I think there's something I passed up on my report. I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention briefly for a second. A couple of updates. One, I wanted to make sure everyone knew that we sent out, per the federal consent decree that we were under, we sent out the newest tranche of 8D2 mailers to be in compliance with that. So those would be mailers that were sent to voters who have not voted in the two previous last election cycles, or who had a return mail date set by a county clerk or the State Board of Elections. We are proactively going to collect that list as soon as it's completed, aggregated, and send both those lists to the RPK and KDP for their knowledge as well, so they can work with that list to effectively bring those voters back into the voter registration list or help identify them so that they can appropriately be removed per law, state law and federal law at the appropriate time frame. And then the other thing, also per the consent decree, we have finalized the onboarding process for Eric. We're in its last steps right now. We will be sending out the first Eric mailer, which will be to all eligible citizens in the Commonwealth who are not registered.
Could you tell people very quickly what ERIC is? Just
sure.
very quickly.
So ERIC is the Electronic Registration Information Center. It is a multi-state organization. It's governed by the states, so it's not an organization that is a nonprofit or another organization that runs this thing. It's actually the board of directors are appointed by the state. The state then helps data transfer between states so that we can do two things. It's a compromise of both left and right values. It helps us, one, do effective list maintenance, which helps clean our voter rolls on a regular basis. What it is when someone moves from Kentucky to Texas or Florida or Rhode Island, we then are notified through ERIC that that person has moved, which will help us in our list maintenance processing, making sure our rolls are effectively cleaned. And then on the other side, it is also an enfranchisement tool. And next month, we will be satisfying that portion of it, which is we will be sending a mailer to all eligible citizens of the Commonwealth who are not registered to vote, encouraging them to register. So it is both a tool to actively clean voter registration lists, but also to encourage voters to become active as registered voters. So that process will take place. We're still not sure the final numbers of that mailer yet, but more than likely it'll be around 500,000 postcards that will get sent out. So, but that will happen roughly around Labor Day. I just want to make sure in case you guys got any phone calls about mailers that were going out. I'll send you a copy of what that artwork looks like so you can see what that before that mailer goes out. But those should be going out, like I said, around Labor Day or so. But that's it.
And that's part of the consent agreement we agreed to
It is,
with the
yes.
federal judge.
Yes.
And that's part of the Judicial Watch case.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anybody else have any comments, thoughts before we adjourn?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. George Russell.
When is the filing deadline before the ballots can be printed? I know we have to get the presidential candidates on the ballot. When is that deadline?
I don't know offhand. I'll have to come back to you with that. Mr. Secretary, you know offhand what the filing deadline is for that?
I believe it's September 4th. That's the deadline for me to certify. So we have to wait for the two major parties to formally nominate their candidates for president in the next couple of weeks. So the first week of September is when I believe the deadline closes and I formally certify. And at that point, then the counties are allowed to go ahead and print their ballots.
That was my question. Thank you.
They have to have them printed. They have
So the
they have to
ballots
have them.
can't-
Pardon? Yeah, the ballots have to be done by 45 days out, which is roughly the 18th of September, something like that. So there's roughly a 2-week span that the counties have to take the finalized ballot and get those ballots printed and back so they can distribute them.
And George, per our UACAVA laws, the way that works is the vendor will take the nominations from the secretary's office. They'll build that ballot out. They'll send a copy to the county board of elections. Once the county board of elections approves that, we're then required to have that up on our FF, our ETS portal for military and overseas voters to have that ballot ready. So there is some spread between each county. It's not a uniform process, but like the secretary said, it has to be done at least at minimum 45 days prior to the election.
Mr. Chairman, one additional question. I've had some calls of people, citizens abroad, and they say due to the worldwide flu, that the mail has stopped in many European countries. And so I told them to contact their consul, and the consul is making arrangements in France to get those ballots to Kentucky in the diplomatic pouch. So if anybody else has questions on that, I would suggest you have them contact their consul in that state, in that country.
We're also recommending too, and thank you, George, for bringing that up, but we're also recommending U.S. military bases as well. So if you are a citizen abroad, you have both the opportunity to take it to your closest consul, and the Department of State knows and understands that overseas voters may be bringing in ballots and that they'll be shipped with the diplomatic bag back to the United States and then appropriately mailed back to their appropriate jurisdiction, but also military bases. If you are an overseas citizen, you can always go to a military base as long as it's a U.S. base. They will put those on the military shipping cargo list, and then they will be flown back to the United States and also be placed into the mail back to the appropriate jurisdiction. So there's a couple of options that we're recommending to our overseas military voters.
Hey, Jerry, can I make a?
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Excuse me,
quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Just want to make a quick comment. I made the mistake of looking at Twitter a moment ago.
Don't do that.
It's always a mistake. There's unfortunately a misinterpretation that's being fed and spread right now about us waiting 48 hours to get this regulation. It's, by the way, 25 pages of legalese that's very technical to make sure that we do it in a way that's consistent with the way the governor and I agreed to and we get the details right. And that's going to then delay the portal. I just want to reiterate that the ballots aren't going to be ready until well into September by law. So there's no delay. There's certainly no harm to any voter if the portal starts on Monday instead of on Friday. I'd like to get it done and the portal up on Friday, but there's not going to be any harm to any voter or any clerk or anyone else if it gets pushed from Friday to Monday. It's still going to be weeks before the ballots can be printed. We don't have the two candidates for president nominated yet as a formality, and there are other races people can file as independents in. So we're protecting the voters. That's the whole point of this. It would be even worse if we rushed this thing through and there were a flaw in it, we had to redo it. That would be even a greater problem.
And just to support what the secretary is saying, for two things. One, obviously the governor and secretary came to their conclusion on Friday of last week. Taylor, I'd like to again thank him publicly. We worked on this over the weekend to diligently get this done and be able to provide this to the board. We completed that process yesterday. So obviously the secretary and the governor just received this document yesterday afternoon. So it's appropriate for them to be able to review it. It's appropriate for the board to be able to review it. We've also sent it to the County Clerks Association for them to be able to review it and make sure that, that we didn't have any structural problems with it as well. But as to the portal itself, it's important that that portal be opened and opened robustly and appropriately. And so those measures, it's not just a light switch we can flip on. And so, we need to make sure that the language is correct and that we code the logic into the portal to be effective so that when those ballots are cast, they're counted appropriately and effectively. But to the secretary's point, our ballots, and to George's earlier question, our ballots are not going to be ready till mid-September. And it's important to understand that. As a matter of fact, right now, when the latest iteration of the portal, the first thing when you log into the portal itself, a pop-up will actually come up that tells voters that, hey, this is a preliminary application. It will be filed correctly and appropriately and timely, but your ballot will not be ready until mid to late September. We tell the voter that at the outset of that process, so they understand that while we're opening the portal earlier, so that voters can have early access and we can spread the time of application out for the clerks to help manifest that process for them on their side, that those ballots are not going to be ready for several more weeks at the minimum.
Well, and by waiting until Thursday, I think it gives everybody more comfort in knowing that everybody's got the opportunity to review and make sure that we do get it right, because we don't want to get it wrong. We want to get it right if we possibly can.
And the lesson is definitely stop looking at Twitter. Mr. Chairman, I think that's
all
it.
Right. Is everybody ready to adjourn? I will accept a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
All right. I've got a motion from Member Brangers and a second from Member Lewis. We are adjourned. Thank you all, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your work
Kick it in.
today.